Here's what you get with this episode of The Nice Guys on Business.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you look at success metrics that we have in our society today, it's obviously driven by dollars. So do I care about the dollars themselves? No, but I care about how much am I giving back to society? And that's the only way that we measure it. So my next step is $1 billion exit of some type, right? I don't know what that's going to be. I don't have anything that I'm working on that I think is in that space, right? There's obviously companies that I'm no longer involved in today that I think are on that trajectory. But it won't get me to that spot, right? Because I've decided to step back for a variety of reasons in those companies. But I think that that's the measurement, right? And if we're not driving towards something, life is boring.
To be in power, you don't need guns or money or even numbers. You just need the will to do what the nice guys on business won't. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by TurnKey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, welcome back, Nice Guy community. Now let's talk about unyielding dedication and innovation. Now, meet the entrepreneurial unicorn, David Hauser, taking a bootstrapped company. Now, listen, TurnKey is bootstrapped, but I'm going to learn. So today I'm going to get all sorts of free coaching from David. I love this. Taking a bootstrapped company called Grasshopper to over $30 million in annual recurring revenue and exiting with a solid 9 figures. We're going to talk about that. Less intro, more guest, I've been told. David, welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Hey, Doug, thanks for having me.
Where do you go after that exit? Why even stay in the game? Why not just be on a beach with your feet up? But that's never the resolve for the ambitious guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, as all entrepreneurs, like we can, it's really hard to not be busy, right? And there's a variety of ways to be busy. And I think that very quickly, we all get very bored if we're sitting on a beach or playing golf, right? And there's different ways that we can fill that kind of how do we feel accomplishment in life? For me, that meant going back into business. Like, I can't imagine, I don't care how old I am or how much money I have or not. Like, that's just always what I do. It's how my brain works, right? And I think that was just the instant, easy choice that made sense, right? But I'm more importantly, after I sold the company, my life didn't change at all, right? So like, the house I lived in I have the same car today. Like, it's a 12-year-old car, 13. I don't even know how old it is anymore.
Right.
Like, those things didn't change, right? Because I think that we use money as a measuring stick for how society sees our success, and less so like the things we can buy.
You said something to me right before I hit record, and it just kind of put that right in my head. And I'm like, maybe if I had to do it again, maybe I wouldn't have sold. And, Strick and I, my partner in our podcast production business, we've talked about this. It's like, man, wouldn't it be great just to, have like a 7-figure buyout and just sell the business and to just put our feet up. And then I'm like, fuck, I'm not gonna, that's probably not my style either. I have a 1967 Ford F-250. I probably wouldn't sell that at all. I'd love just working on it even more. But you said, I don't know, given the opportunity, maybe I wouldn't sell. Now, why did you say that? I'm curious.
So I think I spent a lot of time thinking about this and like the activities I've done after selling, but also talking to a lot of entrepreneurs that have sold companies for tons of money. And we all turn around and spend the next whatever number of years now looking to buy operating companies, right? So like, you spend all this time trying to get out of an operating company to then buy another one, right? And I think that it's actually a weird dichotomy, right? Where I think that a lot of us would actually be better not selling the company and figuring out how do we extract ourselves from it as much as possible to work on new and exciting and passions and all other things we want to do without selling the underlying operating company, right? And for me, that's hard because like I'm a person trying to buy them. So like, I shouldn't be giving this advice, right?
Well, but the key is, I had another guest and I'm blanking on his name, and I'm so sorry if he's a fan or listen to the show, exit without exiting. It's like, how do I actually, replace myself within a company? So that begs the question, what do you think is more important? And I know you're in the business of buying and selling and you invest and we'll talk about that too. But I'm curious, like, how do you give me your thoughts on staying in a company as opposed to selling it?
Yeah, so actually, interestingly, I worked myself out of Grasshopper for the most part, right? So, like, if you think about the 2 years before selling, I was spending maybe 10 to 15 hours a week working in the company, right? So, built a very strong management team, built a daily, weekly, monthly huddle schedule that was kind of my real time in the company. I wasn't active in like bits and pieces on the ground, right? So, like, it wasn't a large time commitment. And so much so that when Citrix bought the company, they said, hey, look, we actually don't want you to stay on, and we're going to pay more money because otherwise we have to find a high paid titled job to make you feel good,
Oh God.
all this stuff. They're like, no, 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 just leave because the company is running, right?
Right, right. So, if you hadn't done that, if you hadn't sold, what would you be doing? Would you think that it would scale even larger, and would you have a even higher buyout, or would you see yourself just continuing to work yourself out of the job and just scaling it up even more?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's really that many buyers for that business in the long run, but we sold it when we were doing $30 million a year revenue, ARR. They're probably doing $100 million now. So like there was plenty of capacity to scale the business, and we knew that. And we sold into that, right? Like we didn't want to sell. They came to us, we can talk about that story, but really there was plenty of capacity for growth. They were just buying early in that growth and paying for it, right? And to some extent, you can't ignore when someone is willing to pay that much more than what you think it's worth at the time. And you're in the business with near perfect information, right?
Oh my gosh. I heard a couple weeks after you actually made the sale that they probably wouldn't have bought the company afterwards. I mean, how perfect is timing, or how imperfect is timing? Because wouldn't that have been great? You'd be in the position of saying, "Hey, look, I could have sold it, but I decided to hold on to it, and look, we're at 100 million, in recurring revenue now."
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that one of the learnings in selling multiple companies now is every day and every conversation is a go conversation, right? It could be
Right.
internal pressures at the acquirer, it could be external pressures, market or otherwise, right? And what ultimately happened at Citrix is a few weeks after we closed, an activist investor came out and said Citrix should sell all of their SaaS offerings. So like that would have killed the deal like instantly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, they did sell all of their SaaS offerings, about $1 billion of revenue they sold, including Grasshopper, right? So I think that was a key learning. It would have been really disappointing at that time, right? Because
Right.
like you're in the sale process. Would it have been bad in the long run? Probably not.
Talk to the early stage entrepreneur that's in my audience. It's just completely just staggered with $30 million because these guys are just trying to make six figures in which to get rid of their full-time hustle. Is any type of, or can you scale any type of organization with the proper systems in place, or do you feel like, look, you were in the tech sector or the communication sector, which was booming at the time, or maybe it wasn't? Can anything scale the way you scaled?
I mean, I think anything can scale with the big enough market. But more importantly, not everything has to scale, right? Like you can run a really successful business that puts out a significant amount of cash, millions of dollars a year, that is not doing $30 million a year top line, right? Like there are tons and tons of those businesses, and they're not better, worse, or any different, right? It's a different type of business and a different type of activity, and that's okay. I think the problem is when we have a mismatch and we think that we're building a scalable business and it's actually not, or the other way around. And that's when we start to lose money or things are not going as we want because we have a mismatch in what we think we're doing and what we're actually doing.
Well, let's talk about that for a quick second. What do you look for when you go out to either buy a company or have some interest in an industry?
Yeah, so I'm actually looking for something very unique now. I'm not looking for scalable big things. I'm looking for durable things, meaning I want revenue that continues to exist over time in both up economies and down economies, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I want less volatility and probably less growth than if I was building a company on my own, right? Because like that's on the buy side very different, right? That's how I think about it. There's obviously buyers at every segment, but I'm looking for that durable revenue, not just recurring revenue, but durable that repeats sometimes, not always.
It's almost like the exact opposite of what venture capital looks for. They look to put as much money into as many things as they possibly can, knowing that 90% of them are going to fail or 99% of them are going to fail. How do you take that approach, kind of slap in the face of VC money that's out there?
Yeah. So look, I obviously have investments in funds that are doing that. So I have exposure to that type of an upside or downside, however it works out. But that's not how I want to spend my time. I like building and scaling companies in that middle segment that is, how do we grow 50, 60, 70, 80% a year? I don't need to grow at 500% a year, right?
Yeah, man.
Like that's what I really enjoy in building those systems, processes, people, management team, all of those things.
I love that you say that. I think about our experience and our journey over the last 7 years of owning this production company. I mean, I was a bar mitzvah MC before this. I spent 30 years doing that, and COVID came and completely shut my business down. Thank God I had this side hustle for this podcast production business. I wrote a book. I was looking for a promotional tool. The podcast became the resource. I was getting more people in my audience saying, "Teach me how to launch a fucking podcast," as I was teach me how to share good customer service stories, with my clients. I'm like, well, maybe this production thing is the thing that we have, but slow and steady wins the race. I really have felt that way. My partner and I, we've experienced 20-25% growth. No, we're not $1 million company, but yeah, we have the capacity to be. But it seems like there are challenges at every phase of the way. There was challenges before 100 grand. There was challenges to get to 200,000. There was challenges to get to 500,000, and we're experiencing all of those things. It's like, how do you get to $1 million? What's the differentiator between $1 million and a $5 million company? Where in there do you see the attraction? Because I feel like I'm just like pulling my hair out at every fucking step of the way. Sorry for my language. I get very animated when it comes to this stuff. But like, what do you like about some of those steps along the way, or what turns you off about those steps?
Yeah, so I actually like kind of the steps after that. Kind of what I look at is kind of $1 million profit or more, right? So depending on industry, that could be a few $1 million top line, that could be higher. Where there's enough of a team, like for me, the sense of accomplishment for me comes from building teams and that process around that, compared to hands-on always doing the work. Like I'm happy to do that. I spent the last year volunteering my time to build a $10 million event here in Las Vegas, right? So like I'm happy to do that work, but it's not where I find accomplishment and joy in life, right?
What was it your dream to become when you were in second grade? I know you didn't say, "Hey, look, I'm going to exit out of a company for 175 million and figure out what comes next in my life." Like, what did you want to do?
So I had two goals. One, I knew I was always going to be an entrepreneur. So very, very early on, and I did all of the things you'd expect. I sold everything from jewelry to website design and anything I could. But really, my inside, right? If I think about like what drove me at that time, I wanted to prove people wrong, right? I wanted to prove people wrong that I could be successful. I struggled with reading and writing. I was years behind. I had to go to tutoring 5 days a week and relearn how to learn for me, right? And now today, I think it's one of my best skills because I can learn very, very quickly because I've learned how my brain works. But that's what drove me, proving people wrong. And it's still what drives me today, right? There's still this person on my shoulder saying, "Hey, remember that time when everyone told you that you couldn't do it?"
One of the things that I noticed about you and doing some research through some other podcasts and reading a little bit about you, you get really good at selling your story when you are early on in your game. Tell my community. I mean, you just touched upon it a little bit, the learning, the reading, that some of the struggles that you had. Tell me how that fit into your aspiring to success from where you are right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it drove everything, right? Like I obviously had a great and very privileged ability to go to a very small school. So I had the kind of tools around me to do these things. It was a very kind of entrepreneurial driven school when you think about it. Very weird school. I had like 12 people in my class. It was an interesting experience. But I think that really like those driving factors pushed me in high school, pushed me after high school, and pushed me today, 30 years later, to say like, I still think I'm that kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
On a daily basis that, was overweight, was, not popular, and, everyone looked at as just was going to fail at everything, right? And I'm thrilled for those experiences. They were painful at the time, but today I would not be as successful without them. Zero question.
How do you find that? Where'd you get your inspiration? Like, was there a person? Was there a people? Was there a group? Was there a system? What's the thing that inspired you to keep running forward? Because it's sometimes hard to get out of that rut. Because that rut of not the right learning environment or a good learning environment, but not the right student, sometimes that's a challenge to get out of that rut.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a unique ability in that I just don't get down about those things. For me, it's always about progress. What's the next thing I can do? I think that was driven by my parents. Like they always just said, "Hey, don't worry about that. Like, what's the next thing you're going to do?" and pushed me in that direction. I think the other amazing thing that happened at that time was access to computers, right? Like access to computers in that early period, like Mac 2 and earlier.
Uh-huh.
Like for me, opened up a world that had no rules, right? Like there was no rules about you could or couldn't do. It didn't matter, right? Like if I wanted to and I spent the time learning it, I could do anything on the computer, right?
Mm.
That I think built that, kind of feeling inside.
I hear $1 billion is in your sights. I learned that on one of the podcasts that you were on. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you look at success metrics that we have in our society today, it's obviously driven by dollars. So do I care about the dollars themselves? No, but I care about how much am I giving back to society? And that's the only way that we measure it. So my next step is $1 billion exit of some type, right? I don't know what that's going to be. I don't have anything that I'm working on that I think is in that space, right? There's obviously companies that I'm no longer involved in today that I think are on that trajectory. But it won't get me to that spot, right? Because I've decided to step back for a variety of reasons in those companies. But I think that that's the measurement, right? And if we're not driving towards something, life is boring.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Who are you learning from now? Is it from books? Is it from going to personal meetings? Is it a mastermind that you're a part of? Where are you learning?
So I love reading or really listening. So, one of the things I learned about how I learn is much more auditory and visual than, reading. So I listen to a lot of books, always paying attention to that. I actually have a book list on my website that I use to filter books. So I kind of look across all the recommendations of different, popular people that have or read a lot, and I see where the intersection is. So I use that to filter what books am I reading. The other thing that I've used throughout my career is organizations like Entrepreneurs Organization, Young Presidents Organization, to really advance my own personal self. So less about business learning, more about personal growth. And those organizations have been very helpful. And now I'm in YPO and that's the event I built in Las Vegas here, a $10 million event. And, so those things I get a lot of joy from.
What do you think about like the expression? It's not what you know, it's who you know. We live in a Shark Tank environment where the guy that's coming from obscurity gets on the show and has a $100 million exit or something like that. Versus hey, I'm going to bootstrap this thing from the ground up, do my own thing, and write my own ticket. What do you compare those two for me?
Yeah, it's really hard because there is a lot of ability for me to reach out to people now, right? So connections I've made over the past 20 years, far more powerful than what I had starting Grasshopper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Famous people, not famous people, influential, not influential, whatever. And it feels somewhat like a crutch sometimes if I'm launching something new and I can reach out to all of these people.
Why a crutch? Use it.
I'm not saying I don't use it, but it feels odd, right? Because like I didn't come from that. I never experienced that or understood it. But yeah, there is a segment and a part, but it doesn't really matter that much. It still matters. Are you building something that people care about, right? Because like you can get influential people to talk about it, like, okay, as favors, but are you building something that the world cares about? That's what really matters. And that's how you take it from people talking about it to success.
I love what you're saying. I love the fact that there's a huge amount of humility and humble nature in your message, and genuinely I feel like this is legitimately you. I mean, I'm not saying that I feel like at any point there was anything different than that, but I just feel like too many people build it for the dollars and cents. I love the fact that you drive a 12 or 13-year-old car. I love the fact that you can be relatable to my audience because you bootstrap this. I think that we live in this instant success environment where somebody comes and gets, $100 million cash infusion from venture capital. and now they feel like they have a company that's valued at 100 million. Well, you just got a check for 100 million. Of course you got that, but it doesn't always work out. Do you feel like you have an advantage over the VC companies that are out there because you bootstrap this?
Yeah, I think it's one of the reasons we were so successful. Like, we did every job ourselves. Like, before we hired a customer service person, I was on the phone answering every single one of those calls. So I knew exactly who to hire and what we needed in the skill set. Now, I've also raised capital, right? So in another company, Vanilla, we raised $42 million in, kind of less than a year period, right? So like, I know what that's like, because we needed a very fast entry into a difficult market, and we needed a lot of staff and people, and that made sense for that company, right? I also step back from that because I don't feel comfortable in a burning scenario, right? Like, even though we have capital, it just doesn't feel inherently in myself comfortable. So I wasn't the right fit to lead that company to the next level, right? But ultimately, I think that people don't understand that, like, as you have more money, there's actually more problems,
Mm-hmm.
and more stress and complexities and estate planning and all these things that come with it, where I was probably more happy before. I lived in a nice house. I drove the car I wanted. I could go on vacation. Like, there's that level, and there's lots of studies around this. Like, once you get to that level, there's no additional joy or happiness above that. It just is.
Right, right. No, I completely hear you. One of the things that I really enjoyed about the early part of our conversation before I hit record, I know it was only a brief segment of time. I said, "Hey, what would be a win for you?" And I'm like, "I just want to serve. I just want to, if I could help the people that are, I'm building my list. I'm building my email list because I don't know what opportunities are going to be out there, and it's always good to have access to people. You have a weekly newsletter that you put out. It's free, I'm assuming, free for
Yeah,
people.
free.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
What's the best way for people to get on that newsletter?
Yeah, so davidhauser.com. You can sign up right there. There's a lot of other resources on the website, all free. I don't sell anything or do anything on the email list. It's really the things I'm reading, learning, thinking about each week, usually about 3 things each week. There's about 15,000 people on the email list today. And although that's a measure of success, right? Like, how many people are reading and engaging, like, that matters. What has been most beneficial to me is the weekly habit of writing. Like, I've become a better human being, a better sharer in all of my relationships, business and personal, because every week I'm putting down my thoughts about, like, what matters to me, right? And I've just become better because of that. So it's a great privilege to be able to do it.
And we appreciate you sharing that with our community. In addition to his newsletter, David also has a book. Maybe just spend just a quick second talking about your book before we wrap up.
Sure. Yeah. So I spent, I don't know, probably about $1 million learning about how to optimize my life from a health perspective, and really discovered ultimately in that process that you don't have to spend very much money at all. It's actually the cheapest, or even free things you can do, optimizing your sleep, your diet, your movement patterns, things like that, to really find where you can be better in life. And I've lost, 80 pounds and feel better and much more active, and all of those things as part of a very long decade journey. I wrote about it in a book. I'm not good at promoting it, so no idea if we sold any or not. But
what's the name of the book? You got to start there. What's the name of it?
Unstoppable. It's available on Amazon. Link on the website. All that stuff.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would give it to people for free because it was a great journey for me from a learning perspective, and that's why I went down that path, was to share that.
I love it. Well, make sure if you're in our Nice Guy community, make sure you take a moment, go over to davidhauser.com. We'll put a link in the show notes so you have access not only to David's newsletter, but to his book as well. David, so appreciate you being on the show today. We had a guest recently, Sean Nelson. He's the CEO of Lovesac. I don't know if you know Sean.
Yeah.
Do you know him? You actually?
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. That wasn't how we connected, is it?
No. But I know him through something else.
Yeah. Well, he's a cool guy, and you guys. It sounds like you know him already. I was going to say, hey, I'd be happy to make an introduction, but I guess you don't need that. I guess you already have the introduction made. Anyway, he his personality, his style is very laid back, very casual, and very unassuming. Reminded me a lot of yours. So I appreciate you know him, and I appreciate you being on the show and sharing your message today.
Yeah, I appreciate having me. It's been an honor to be here, and really enjoy sharing. And my email address is on the website. Happy to talk to anyone. I try to make myself available as much as possible.
I see a coaching business in your future. You just seem to want to give away your time. Unpaid consulting is not good. You should definitely turn the tables on that. Maybe make a couple of bucks for it.
Yeah, I'm probably not the best person for that, but I've definitely done a lot of it for free.
All good, man, and continue giving it away, because I think that that's one of the signs of a guy that has ultimately reached success is somebody that is willing to give away his time without feeling like everything is on the meter. So thank you, David. Thanks for sharing today.
Thanks, Doug.
Hey, Nice Guy community, never underestimate the value of nice. Again, special thanks to David Hauser. All of his information, including access to his website, his book, right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Fill up your week with the nice guys. Have fun storming the castle, boys.